Good evening to all of you. In our last lecture, we talked about the brief introduction of the concept of evolution. So, we learned that evolution is not only in terms of living organism. When we are studying about evolution, we are actually studying about evolution of universe, evolution of earth also, isn't it? So today we will look into the step-by-step way. What are the steps of evolution? Okay, first of all, we need to understand this concept that organic evolution was not an easy thing to describe. Why? Because no one was there to give any direct proof. Okay, so as no one is having any direct proof, there were so many questions, and these questions were unanswered by like lot many people. So there were various theories for evolution. Can anyone mention what are the theories? क्या क्या theories थे? हमने last week पढ़ा था about evolution. 4 theories we studied, isn't it? Class?
Ma'am, don't know the name, but
You tell me the concept, no problem.
मैम एक में ऐसा था कि मतलब एक साइंटिस्ट ने कहा था कि अ, ऐसा कोई प्रोसेस नहीं हुआ था, जस्ट एक सुपरनेचुरल पावर ने ही सारी स्पीशीज पहले से ही थी और उससे ही मतलब आगे फर्दर
So
प्रोडक्शन हुआ.
it's the concept of special creation by God, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is the next theory? Who is going to tell me?
Natural selection.
Natural selection. Yes, what it is?
Ma'am, it was discovered by Darwinism.
So I didn't teach you. I am talking about, see, Darwin's theory is in support of evolution. Darwin described that evolution does exist. Okay. So I'm not talking about that, beta. I'm talking about what were the theories. First step when we talked about evolution, the first step was to prove that evolution is there. Life, this diversity of life form on earth was not created in one day. There were some what I can say events by which it was created. तो उसके बारे में क्या-क्या theories थे? We studied about it in our last lecture. That theory of Panspermia, that someone from extraterrestrial creature like implanted, or some meteorite, something like that, implanted the life on earth, and then the procedure started. This is one theory. One theory, she mentioned that it is theory of spatial creation. Third theory was something I told you about, the creation of life from non-living living objects spontaneously. I told you about the flies. Can you remember?
Yes, ma'am.
So that theory is called abiogenesis. Okay. Maggots की development हुई थी. So let me show you a glimpse of things. So These four were the theories of four theories we talked about in our last lecture. Okay, so slowly and gradually the concept that was in favor was the concept of this one that is known as theory of chemical evolution, because best suited proof was there available in favor of this theory. So it was accepted by scientific community that life is not coming from extraterrestrial part, it's not created by God, neither abruptly it was created from non-living substances. There is a slow and gradual process by which life was created. Now, obviously, if such a important statement need to be marked, beta, there need to be some proper proof of these experiments. So, two scientists who actually proposed this theory of chemical evolution were Operin and Halden, and their theory was later on proved by the two other scientists which who named as Yuri and Miller. So these are the two great people who was able to create primitive earth conditions in the lab. Okay, so what they did, I wish to show you the experimental setup of Yuri and Miller. It was an interesting one, and itself, this is the experimental setup. I guess you can clearly see my screen better.
Yes, ma'am.
So the situation in life pre-Earth, pre-Earth, when life was not there on Earth, situation was very harsh. So what were the harsh situations? Let me tabulate them one by one. First thing is it was very hot, approximately 800 degrees centigrade. You can understand the situation. Second, no atmosphere was there. So you need to know, beta, atmosphere's presence is something which is very, very important. The atmosphere that was present at that time and the one we are having now are like way apart. Atmosphere means there was no O2. So at that condition, O3 was also not there. So what will happen if ozone layer is not there? Class? What is the ill effect of not having ozone layer? Yes, Yesha.
रेडिएशन से हार्म होगा हमको.
So that means radiations were coming to the earth. Okay. So can you imagine such situation? Apart from that, there was volcanic eruption, as well as lightning. These two were like very common event present at that condition. So in such harsh condition, we have to prove that life was created. So what Urey and Miller did was they created a system, the one like visible over here. In that, they took heated water of which is having similar composition with the ocean water. I told you that when Earth started to cool down, all material were washed out and they were gathered at the ocean only. So this heated water gets evaporated and water vapor is coming up. In this bulb, actually, they added the electrodes which were connected to high voltage electricity to create the lightning simulation. Okay. In this container, there were mixture of gases. What were the gases present over there? The gases that were present over here were CO2, methane, ammonia, and H2. So no O2 was there, no O3 was there. So they maintained this type of condition for a while, and after maintaining such condition for a while, it was observed that small micromolecules were created inside this water. Here in these like condensed liquid, traces of RNA and DNA were found. So it shows that in primitive earth condition, it was possible for formation of sugar, nitrogenous bases, lipids, amino acids, and even some pigments. But do you think that is enough? आपको क्या लगता है इतना बहुत हो गया for creation of life? What is still missing?
Water, food.
Water तो was there, no? सी में वाटर नहीं तो क्या होगा ये शान? So having protein, lipid, carbohydrate is enough, do you think? Class?
Ma'am, plant.
So you mean to say that DNA, RNA, protein and carbohydrate are living, isn't it? Class?
मैम तो सनलाइट में
अरे बाप रे, all things were non-living. Don't you think first thing that is required is creation of life, beta? What is the difference between a dead body or of a person who died 30 seconds ago and the living person? क्या ऐसा होता है which is absent in a living person, which is missing in a non-living person? कंसिडर करो एक इंसान जिंदा है, हार्ट अटैक से वो मर गया 5 मिनट में, तो 5 मिनट पहले उसकी बॉडी में क्या था जो अभी मिसिंग है, जो 5 मिनट बाद नहीं है, इसलिए उसको हम डेड बॉडी बोल रहे हैं.
Life.
वो है, उसमें तो प्रोटीन भी है, कार्बोहाइड्रेट भी है, लिपिड भी है. 5 मिनट में वो सड़ तो नहीं जा रहे हैं ना. But are their presence enough to prove that life was created on earth? Yes, नक्षत्र बोलो बेटा.
ऑक्सीजन मैम.
You are not, मतलब it seems that 11वीं में हमें एक चैप्टर था characteristics of living organism. Have you studied what are the characteristics of living organism? How you signify that one organism is living, something is non-living? बोलो बेटा, what are the characteristics of living organism बेटा?
Respiration, locomotion.
Very good. So plants do not locomote, they are non-living. Yesha, what are the basic characteristics of living organisms? See, that's why concepts of grade 11 are very, very much important for chapters. So living organism, the characteristics are, first characteristics that is important is response to stimuli. Second characteristics that is important is growth. Yes, Jia? Want to say something, beta? Jia, we cannot hear you, beta. Third important thing is response to stimuli, growth. Third thing that is required is metabolism. Fourth is
Some reproduction.
it will come late. Control and coordination. Why reproduction will come late? हम में से बहुत सारे लोग ऐसे होते हैं, they cannot reproduce. Are they non-living? Class, have you heard about mule? Mule, M-U-L-E.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a hybrid of horse and donkey. So are they capable of reproduction? No, but they are living. So all these characters are not simply the gathering of the non-living objects. Something is there which we still not able to create. The day we will be able to create life, maybe we will be God. Okay. So something is there extra other than the DNA, RNA, protein, carbohydrate, lipid, which is responsible for creation of life. That is the coordination between. एक ऑर्गेनिज्म जब मर जाता है बेटा, उसमें वो कोऑर्डिनेशन चला जाता है. हमारी बॉडी में जैसे मैं आपसे बात कर रही हूँ, मेरा सर हिल रहा है, मेरे हाथ हिल रहे हैं, my vocal cord is vibrating, I am writing with a pen, so my hands are moving on, eyes are there, ears are there, so there is a coordination. नॉन लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म में जो इंसान अभी अभी मर गया है, उसके पास ये कान भी होता है, मुंह भी होता है, नाक भी होता है, हैंड भी होता है, बट इज देयर दैट पर्सन मूविंग और कोरिलेटिंग विथ यू? नो. व्हाई? बिकॉज द कोऑर्डिनेशन एंड कंट्रोल इज मिसिंग. सो let me once again summarize what we learned in evolution. We first learned about evolution, the definition. Then we learned about the proofs that evolution was there. In this case, very strong proof was required because no one was present there at that time in the world. World, in fact, was not there when Earth was created 4.5 billion years ago. So, obviously, we require a direct proof of it. तो उसके बारे में 4 थियरीज थे. थियरी ऑफ स्पेशल क्रिएशन, पैंसपर्मिया. ऑल थियरीज वर डिस्कसिंग द कांसेप्ट ऑफ इवोल्यूशन. सब बोल रहे थे कि नहीं, लाइफ बाहर से ही आया है, इट्स नॉट क्रिएटेड बाय इन द अर्थ. और बायोजेनेसिस की थियरी वाज अब्सर्ड वन. ओवरनाइट अचानक से एक ऑर्गेनिज्म पैदा हो रहा है, दैट इज नॉट पॉसिबल. So the one was chemical evolution theory provided by Oparin and Haldane, जिसकी first proof दिया इन्होंने the Yuri and Miller ने by creating the non-living objects. Clear now, everyone, up to this?
Yes, ma'am.
So, till now it is proved that evolution was there. अभी तक हमारे पास क्या डायरेक्ट प्रूफ है कि लाइफ क्रिएट हुआ था? बेटा इवोल्यूशन वाज देयर, इसकी प्रूफ हमारे पास है द फॉसिल्स एंड अदर पैरामीटर्स. So these are the things which shows that once upon a time there was organisms which were there, but now they are not there. So once we gathered the proof, next challenge that was present in front of these scientists were they need to propose a chronological event of evolution. उनके लिए नेक्स्ट सबसे जरूरी बात ये थी एक फ्लो चार्ट बनाना कि भाई कब क्या हुआ था. ओके, सो टुडे इन आवर नेक्स्ट part we are going to talk about creation of life, or rather to say origin of life on earth. Okay, so earth was created by Big Bang. Okay, so there was creation of earth by a Big Bang. So at that time earth was liquid and hot. It was not able to escape gravitation of sun. So encircles so next event is earth cools down. There was heavy rain and creation of uneven surface of earth. जब वो ठंडा हो रहा था तब कोई कोई सरफेस ऊंचा था, that turned into mountain. Some parts were flat, some parts were deeply seated. We call them trench. Okay, so atmosphere had, what were the composition of what atmosphere? It has methane, it has NH3, it has CO2, it has water. No O2 was there. Some amount of H2 was there, but O2 was not at all present in the atmosphere. Okay. Now, the rainwater, yes, Dish?
मैम सो अर्थ में पहले केमिकल रिएक्शंस आए.
कौन सा केमिकल रिएक्शन Dish?
मैम मतलब अर्थ में जब बना उसके बाद सबसे पहले केमिकल रिएक्शन हुआ, बाद में ही तो प्लांट्स और वो सब हो एनिमल्स.
Obviously. प्लांट्स तो बहुत, मैंने आपको पहले दिन क्या बताया था लेक्चर में कि अगर हम अर्थ की क्रिएशन से आज की टाइम को 24 आवर्स कंप्लीट कंसीडर करें, फ्रॉम द डे ऑफ क्रिएशन ऑफ अर्थ, और रादर टू से चलो उतना भी नहीं ले रहे, इफ वी आर कंसिडरिंग कि जिस टाइम पे लाइफ ओरिजिन हुआ था अर्थ में, उस टाइम से लेके आज के टाइम को 24 आवर्स कंसिडर करें, तो ह्यूमन बीइंग की क्रिएशन रात को 23.59 मिनट्स में हुआ हो। मतलब कितना करंट स्पीशीज है ह्यूमन बीइंग, आप सोचो इतनी लंबी लिनिएज है इसकी। ह्यूमन बीइंग से पहले कितने सारे क्रीचर्स थे जो बने और जो आज एक्सटिंक्ट है। अंडरस्टूड? एंड वी फील दैट वी आर सुपीरियर। that's a wrong notion. If we would have been superior, 1.5 साल से बैठ के हम ऑनलाइन क्लासेस नहीं कर रहे हैं। Some organism which we cannot see with our naked eyes with normal microscope is disturbed all our life since last 1.5 years. Anyways, so the rainwater was harvested in so as there was heavy rain water पूरे सरफेस ऑफ अर्थ को वॉश करके उसकी जो केमिकल सब्सटेंसेस है उसको सी में लेके जाके इकट्ठा किया। ओके, नाउ दिस was known as, or rather to say, this was termed as hot dilute soup. So two scientists who proposed this chronological event, Oparin and Halden, they termed this sea water full of concoctions of all chemical substances and high at temperature as hot dilute soup. Okay, now I wish to draw your attention towards something. We are viviparous organisms, isn't it? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
So, where the child grows inside mother's womb, कहाँ पे grow होता है? Developmental stages of embryo takes place where?
Uterus.
So, is it present in the uterus in dry condition, beta? How it is present inside the uterus? अभी हमें पढ़ा है हमने, so you cannot say no. Class?
Fluid होता है ना, amniotic fluid.
Very good. So that means, are we completely terrestrial animal? We are not aquatic. How many of you think human being is aquatic? Can you please raise your hand? Sure. Thank God. So all agree that we are terrestrial. But still, where is the life created in our case, beta? It's created in earth, or matlab terrestrial condition, in dry condition, or in water? In our case, the first cell of life in human is present inside a moist environment or in a dry environment. The development of embryo occur in a moist environment or in a dry environment. Class?
Moist.
Obviously. So it shows that creation of life was occurring in the water. If you talk about oviparous animals, in their case also, inside the egg, the embryo development occurred in a liquid medium only. It shows that life was there. So now, from this hot dilute soup, there was creation of biomolecules. So I just want to share with you another thing. You studied biomolecule chapter in grade 11, beta? Class?
Yes, ma'am.
So there was formation of a bond between carbohydrates. Can anyone tell me what that bond told? Known as? और अमाइनो एसिड्स के बीच में कौन सा बॉन्ड रहता है? Class? What is the bond formed between?
Glycosidic.
Glycosidic bond.
Very good. So कैसे बनता है? What type of reaction is formation of glycosidic bond formation is a what type of reaction? Let me tell you in terms of a carbohydrate only. If it has H, OH, and there is another monosaccharide, say, I'm not drawing the carbon and other because it's not required here. What is this reaction called? Where H2O is removed.
Dehydration.
So can you like remember that in case of peptide bond formation, in case of glycosidic bond formation, in case of phosphodiester bond formation or ester linkage formed in case of lipid also, everywhere the reaction is dehydration reaction. So it was proposed by scientists that in this hot dilute soup condition, the lightning and the volcanic eruption provided the energy so that there was creation of monomer. And Yuri Miller proved that in primitive earth condition, formation of monomer was possible. Then these monomers were connected with each other to form the polymer. Is our problem solved? Life is created? Class? Have we got the life or the polymer? Are they same?
No, ma'am.
So here comes the challenge for the scientists. Many years ago, we didn't know so much about life, you know. So now they propose that there was creation of ribozyme. You know what are ribozymes? They are having RNA plus enzyme part. Can anyone tell me where we studied about ribozyme? कौन सी चीज करता है ribozyme? They have many other names. They are known as catalytic RNA or SNRKs also. What they do? In which context we studied about them? Class?
Ma'am, in the topic RNA chapter 6.
Yes. So in splicing, we studied about them. So this ribozyme was created. Why? Why it was the idea? Because it can self-replicate. Okay. Then they thought there must be creation of somewhere. Along with this, there was creation of microsphere. You know that if we put lipid molecule in water, such structure is formed. Can you tell me what is this structure is called what? Class? This type of structure.
Hydrophilic and
Yes, it
Ma'am,
is.
hydrophilic and
Hydrophobic parts. So these are called micelles or micelles or micelles. Okay. So what they proposed is both of these two things connected with each other to form the quasi-weights, which were very primitive organism. From these quasi-weights, there must be production of archaebacteria, because archaebacteria are the bacteria which have ability to live in extreme condition without oxygen, without anything they live. Then there must be creation of cyanobacteria, and the photosynthesis conducted by them was able to have create O2 is created. So slowly and steadily, now the environment is not that extreme, and maybe from this there was creation of different 5 kingdoms, that is Monera, Protista, Plantae, Fungi, Animalia, all this. Understood? So there was creation of 5 kingdoms. This was a proposed idea. No direct proof is there, but so many indirect proofs are there. I wish to share with you. In Miami University, there was a scientist called Sidney Fox. What he did was he tried to create a primitive earth environment. In that he took clay. You know, nowadays we talk a lot about activated charcoal and clay. They are very good cleansing agent and all. So at that time, at the seabed, there was presence of clay that acted as an excellent reaction medium where these monomers were embedded. Monomers उसके अंदर साथ में थे, and as soon as the water molecule from 2 adjacent monomer was removed, they got connected to form the polymer. So सिडनी फॉक्स ने ये मोनोमर से पॉलीमर बनने की जो प्रोसेस है, he proved that. So don't you find this is interesting, this whole process that they predicted? Class, what do you feel?
Yes, ma'am.
So all of us are part of maybe cyanobacteria, or like they are the most primitive ancestor of us. So it is indeed a very remarkable event. Anyone any doubt beta regarding whatever we learned, how life must have originated on Earth? So now it is time where we can have a look into some videos for origin of life. We can definitely have a look into them and better understand the procedure of origin of life. Give me 1 minute so that I can share the screen. By the meantime, you kindly think in your mind what are the portions we learned so that if you have any question, you can ask to me. So let's have a look into the origin of life video. I have actually many videos. I want you people to have a look into all of them. Kindly, let's proceed.
Stated Clearly presents, Can Science Explain the Origin of Life? A full scientific explanation for the origin of life does not currently exist, but research groups around the globe are tackling the mystery. Here we'll take a look at a few of their discoveries. Darwin's theory of biological evolution tells us that all life on Earth may have originated from a single, relatively simple reproducing creature living in the distant past. This idea is based on many observations, one of which is that when living things reproduce, children are often born with random new traits. Those with negative new traits are less likely to survive and reproduce. Those with positive new traits are more likely to survive and pass those traits on to their children. Over multiple generations, positive traits build up, allowing relatively simple life forms to evolve into complex life forms and even split into multiple different species. A careful look at the fossil record overwhelmingly confirms Darwin's theory. Life forms get simpler and simpler as we go back in time. The record suggests that all life on Earth emerged from primitive cellular colonies, which first appeared roughly 3.5 billion years ago. But how did those first reproducing creatures come about? Even the simplest bacteria alive today are far too complex to have popped into existence in a single step. Furthermore, the first reproducing creature could not have developed through biological evolution because biological evolution requires reproduction in order to work. The origin of life needs its own explanation. The most promising idea right now, the one which is consistently leading scientists to new discoveries, is the idea that life emerged from chemistry. Chemistry is the study of matter, particularly how atoms interact and combine to form molecules, and how those molecules interact and combine to form larger systems and structures. Everything is made of chemicals. The air we breathe, the ground we walk on, the shoes on our feet, even the feet inside our shoes. That said, the chemistry of life is special in two very important ways. First, the chemistry of life is organized into metabolic pathways. If you look at the cells of any living thing, even a plant which you wouldn't normally think of as being very lively, you discover a world of activity. Chemical reactions occur in continuous orderly paths, each reaction sparking the next. Scientists call these strange reactions metabolic pathways. The second oddity of life's chemistry is that living cells are made of special molecules. Building blocks like amino acids and sugars, which we once thought could not be found outside of life. These building blocks combine to form highly complex and orderly structures like genes, proteins, and cell membranes. In the past, scientists had no idea what powered the strange activities of life and produced its unique chemicals. They concluded that life must be fueled by a mysterious energy they called the vital force. In 1828, a chemist by the name of Frederick Wöhler accidentally produced urea in his lab. Urea is one of the main components of urine, one of many chemicals that the scientists of his time thought could only be produced by the vital force acting inside of a living creature. The artificial production of urea suggested that life might not be powered by a mysterious force, but instead is powered by normal chemical reactions which could be studied and understood. Since that time, numerous molecules and cellular activities have been recreated in the lab, clearly demonstrating that life is powered by normal chemical reactions and suggesting that life may have emerged from non-living chemistry. Researchers have recently discovered that many of the building blocks of life, amino acids and sugars, exist inside of meteorites, rocks which have fallen to the Earth from outer space. This tells us that these special molecules are being produced spontaneously all throughout our solar system and may have been common on the ancient Earth. We've also discovered a process now referred to as chemical evolution. When simple molecules are left alone with an energy source, they interact with one another, often forming larger, more complex molecules as time goes on. Experiments in the lab have shown that chains of chemical reactions can develop, some of which resemble the metabolic pathways of life. Surprisingly, we've also found that certain molecules have the remarkable ability to self-assemble into complex, orderly structures. Some self-assemble into hollow spheres, almost identical to the membranes of modern living cells. Others self-assemble into long columns, remarkably similar to the strands of DNA found in life. Scientists still have many questions to answer about life's origins. How did different types of molecules first start working together, eventually producing the genetic code? What were the original reproducing creatures actually like? Were they similar to the cells we have today, or were they something much simpler? And finally, possibly the most interesting question of all, how likely is it that life has formed or is forming in other regions of our galaxy? So, back to the original question, can science explain the origin of life? Science has not explained the origin of life in full detail, but researchers are building a theory intended to one day describe, start to finish, how basic chemistry can give rise to living cells. I'm John Perry, and that's the origin of life, as we understand it so far, stated clearly.
So how was
This
the video? Class? Are you there with me?
Nice, ma'am.
My idea of showing this video was to you, like just to clear the concept in terms of what were the questions, what were the challenges. Now we will look into the video where primitive earth condition is like described in a very, very nice way. And it's like altogether time travel to that time. So I'm once again sharing my screen. I guess it is visible to all of you.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's have a look.
Billions of years ago, on the young planet Earth, simple organic compounds assembled into more complex coalitions that could grow and reproduce. They were the very first life on Earth, and they gave rise to every one of the billions of species that have inhabited our planet since. At the time, Earth was almost completely devoid of what we'd recognize as a suitable environment for living things. The young planet had widespread volcanic activity and an atmosphere that created hostile conditions. So where on Earth could life begin? To begin the search for the cradle of life, it's important to first understand the basic necessities for any life form. Elements and compounds essential to life include hydrogen, methane, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, phosphates, and ammonia. In order for these ingredients to commingle and react with each other, they need a liquid solvent, water. And in order to grow and reproduce, all life needs a source of energy. Life forms are divided into two camps: autotrophs, like plants, that generate their own energy, and heterotrophs, like animals, that consume other organisms for energy. The first life form wouldn't have had other organisms to consume, of course, so it must have been an autotroph, generating energy either from the sun or from chemical gradients. So what locations meet these criteria? Places on land or close to the surface of the ocean have the advantage of access to sunlight. But at the time when life began, the UV radiation on Earth's surface was likely too harsh for life to survive there. One setting offers protection from this radiation and an alternative energy source: the hydrothermal vents that wind across the ocean floor, covered by kilometers of seawater and bathed in complete darkness. A hydrothermal vent is a fissure in the Earth's crust where seawater seeps into magma chambers and is ejected back out at high temperatures, along with a rich slurry of minerals and simple chemical compounds. Energy is particularly concentrated at the steep chemical gradients of hydrothermal vents. There's another line of evidence that points to hydrothermal vents: the last universal common ancestor of life, or LUCA for short. LUCA wasn't the first life form, but it's as far back as we can trace. Even so, we don't actually know what LUCA looked like. There's no LUCA fossil, no modern-day LUCA still around. Instead, scientists identified genes that are commonly found in species across all three domains of life that exist today. Since these genes are shared across species and domains, they must have been inherited from a common ancestor. These shared genes tell us that LUCA lived in a hot, oxygen-free place and harvested energy from a chemical gradient, like the ones at hydrothermal vents. There are two kinds of hydrothermal vent: black smokers and white smokers. Black smokers release acidic, carbon dioxide-rich water, heated to hundreds of degrees Celsius and packed with sulfur, iron, copper, and other metals essential to life. But scientists now believe that black smokers were too hot for LUCA, so now the top candidates for the cradle of life are white smokers. Among the white smokers, a field of hydrothermal vents on the mid-Atlantic ridge called Lost City has become the most favored candidate for the cradle of life. The seawater expelled here is highly alkaline and lacks carbon dioxide, but is rich in methane and offers more hospitable temperatures. Adjacent black smokers may have contributed the carbon dioxide necessary for life to evolve at Lost City, giving it all the components to support the first organisms that radiated into the incredible diversity of life on Earth today. Did you know that a single-celled organism caused the first mass extinction? Check out this animation about how it almost wiped out life on Earth and paved the way for complex life.
So this describes that how different thoughts or hypothesis was proposed by different scientists. They mentioned about LUCA, and let me tell you, coacevates, microsphere, these were proposed at different time about different scientists. Till date, research is going on for evolution, and till date we are trying to find some ideas. So every day we are actually trying to find out the actual method. With more discoveries in the field of science, things are getting changed every day. Okay, so this is our next one.
In this module, you will learn about the origin of life. looking at the pictures of these extinct prehistoric animals, it is difficult to believe that they had once walked on our planet. In fact, the Earth and its numerous life forms were originally different. To understand the changes in life forms on Earth over millions of years, we need to know how life originated. The origin of life forms, or biodiversity, is interlinked with the evolution of the Earth, which is again closely associated with the evolution of the universe. The universe is vast, comprises many galaxies, and is almost 20 billion years old. The Big Bang theory attempts to explain the origin of the universe. According to this theory, a singular huge explosion caused the infinitesimally small, hot and dense universe to expand, which resulted in the lowering of temperatures. It even states that the universe continues to expand even today. After the passage of time, gases such as hydrogen and helium got formed. They condensed due to gravitation and gave rise to different galaxies in the universe. One of the galaxies known to us is the Milky Way, which contains the solar system, and the Earth is one of the planets in this system. At the time of its formation, there was no atmosphere on the Earth. Its surface was covered by water vapor, methane, carbon dioxide, and ammonia released from the molten mass. Gradually, the ultraviolet rays of the sun broke up the water, which was in vapor state, into hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen, being a lighter gas than oxygen, escaped. Thereafter, oxygen combined with ammonia and methane, which led to the formation of water, carbon dioxide, and other gases. The high-energy ultraviolet rays of the sun struck the oxygen molecule and split it into oxygen atoms, which in turn reacted with other oxygen molecules to form ozone, and thus the ozone layer was formed. Some of the water vapor cooled and came down as rain, which filled all the deep depressions on the Earth and formed oceans. It is estimated that life appeared on Earth 500 million years after its formation. There are different theories that try to explain the beginning of life on Earth. Some of them are Panspermia, spontaneous generation, biogenesis, and chemical evolution.
So class, I guess this part will be requiring other elaboration, beta.
No, ma'am.
Panspermia is the oldest theory
Wait,
founded by
wait,
Greek
wait.
thinkers.
Let me share one
It
second.
explains that units of life called spores were transferred to different planets. Panspermia assumes that seeds of life exist all over the universe. Panspermia is the oldest theory founded by Greek thinkers. It explains that units of life called spores were transferred to different planets. Panspermia assumes that seeds of life exist all over the universe. Therefore, the life on Earth may have originated after one such seed was deposited on the Earth from somewhere in the universe. This theory generates much interest even today. Another belief was that life arose from inanimate things. The theory of spontaneous generation assumed that life came out of non-living, decaying, and rotting matter such as stones, straw, and mud. Even famous Greek thinker and philosopher Aristotle believed in this theory. In fact, this theory was used to explain even Anton von Leeuwenhoek's findings of animalcules using the simple microscope. Moreover, some scientists, such as John Needham, supported the theory of spontaneous generation by conducting some experiments. In one of his experiments, Needham boiled chicken broth in a flask and then cooled it to room temperature in an open container. Later, he sealed this container. After a few days, he observed a few microbes in it. Needham believed that some life force had brought about this spontaneous generation in the chicken broth. The theory of spontaneous generation was in vogue until a German biologist, Rudolf Virchow, challenged it with his theory called omnis cellula acellula, which expounded that living cells can arise from pre-existing cells. However, he could not prove this theory of biogenesis. Later on, Louis Pasteur, with his experiments, proved the theory of biogenesis and forever silenced the advocates of spontaneous generation. In his experiment, he used pre-sterilized sealed flasks with killed yeast. These flasks did not show any signs of life. On the contrary, in another flask, he exposed killed yeast to air. Surprisingly, living organisms were found in this flask. Another theory, called the theory of chemical evolution, was expounded by Russian scientist Alexander Ivanovich Oparin and British scientist John Burdon Sanderson Haldane. They proposed that the first form of life originated from pre-existing non-living organic molecules such as RNA and protein. They also pointed out that the birth of life was preceded by chemical evolution or the formation of diverse organic molecules from inorganic constituents. When the Earth was created, the conditions were high temperature, volcanic storms, and reducing atmosphere consisting of methane and ammonia. In 1953, American scientist Stanley Lloyd Miller recreated these conditions in a laboratory. He created an electric discharge in a closed flask containing methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and water vapor at 800 degrees centigrade and observed the formation of amino acids. Later on, while conducting similar experiments, other scientists observed the formation of sugars, nitrogen bases, pigment, and fats as well. Interestingly, when meteorite content was analyzed, similar compounds were found in them, which proved that similar processes occurred in other parts of the universe as well. Thereafter, the theory of chemical evolution was most widely accepted. However, there were still doubts about how the first cell came into existence. Cellular forms of life originated around 2,000 million years ago as unicellular organisms in water. It is probable that all life forms originated in a water environment. This theory of chemical evolution, which explains that first life forms arose from non-living molecules through evolutionary forces, is now widely accepted. However, the origin of life is a fascinating and curious topic which will forever invite a lot of debate and speculation. You have now reached the end of this module. In this module, you learnt that the origin of life is interlinked with the evolution of the Earth, which is linked with the evolution of the universe. The universe is vast and comprises many galaxies and is almost 20 billion years old. The Big Bang theory refers to a singular huge explosion which caused the infinitesimally small, hot and dense universe to expand and then cool. Panspermia is the oldest theory expounded by the Greeks, which assumes that units of life called spores were transferred to different planets. The theory of spontaneous generation believed that life came out of decaying and rotting matter such as straw and mud. Louis Pasteur founded the theory of biogenesis, which explains that life comes only out of pre-existing life. The theory of chemical evolution, which states that the first life forms arose from non-living molecules through evolutionary forces, is now widely accepted.
So with this we are done with the concept of origin of life. Next day we will talk about in our next lecture, we will talk about the different theories of evolution. Now, up to now, it was proved by scientists that, okay, evolution was there. All other three theories were discarded. Now the things are how evolution was conducted. So regarding that, there were landmark scientists like Lamarck was there, then Darwin was there. So we will talk about their theories one by one in our next lecture. Any doubts, anyone, beta? Regarding whatever we learned till for evolution? Class? Great.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
So bye to all of you. We will meet tomorrow. Once again. Bolo.
Ma'am, I think last Friday's video lecture was not uploaded.